the forehead. And what's interesting about that is that that's where the heat in the body is able to power this biochip, which, by the way, contains all of your information, not just medical information. And in the day and age of ID theft, as bad as that's getting, that'll take care of it. That's going to solve a lot of problems, or seemingly so. So what will happen now is the Antichrist will bring the world under his control in a one-world government, a one-world economy, and a one-world religion. The third headline, Saturday, May 15th, poll, more Americans say U.S. morality getting worse. Well, this is exactly what the Bible says will happen. In the last days, things will wax worse and worse, and there would be a continual moral free fall into godlessness. The Apostle Paul, writing to Timothy in his second epistle, chapter 3, verses 1 through 5, and we studied this a little while back, he lists all of these characteristics that will mark the last days. And if you look at each and every one of them, at their core, the common denominator is, it is wickedness waxing worse, it is evil waxing worse, it is godlessness waxing worse and worse. You know, I'm not of the school that there's going to be a revival. I believe there will be a final gathering until the fullness of the Gentiles is complete, but I don't see anywhere in the scriptures where there's going to be this massive revival before Jesus comes back for his church. In fact, it's really the antithesis of that. The Bible describes an apostasy where people are falling away from and departing from the faith, and it gets worse and worse. And this is a sign of the last days. And it's interesting to me that this was a survey done amongst Americans. In other words, people in the United States are admitting that things are getting worse. For those of you who are, close in proximity to my age, 25, think back to, 10 years ago, even 15 years ago. Do you remember when there was a murder that it would make the front page? And I mean, it was big news. Today, oh my goodness, it's commonplace. We have become so desensitized to the reality of the world, the condition of the world in which we live today. I mean, it's getting to the point now where I cannot watch a news broadcast on television with my children present in the room. I mean, some of the horrid and horrific and unspeakable evil that is taking place right here on this island. I remember one news broadcast in particular. I think it was probably the last time I ever turned on the local news there in the family room. There was back-to-back rape, murder, sexual molestation. I mean, it was just, I couldn't believe it. I turned the TV off, and I realized I've got my 11, soon to be 12, going on 25-year-old son. I got my 9-year-old son who's also going on 25, and I got my precious 3-year-old daughter, and I'm looking at her, and I'm thinking, what kind of, if the Lord tarries, how bad is it going to be? When I walk you down the aisle, which actually I won't be walking her down the aisle, I'll be doing her wedding. Lord, come quickly. What kind of world is it going to be that she is going to get married in if the Lord tarries? And we tend to have this static analysis where we look at the world and we think, oh my goodness, it's really bad. Well, yes it is, but do you realize that it's going to get worse exponentially? In other words, as in the days of Noah, so too will it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. What do we know to be true about the days of Noah? That they would continually think of new ways to do evil. In other words, if I can paraphrase, they would run out of evil to do, so they'd have to come up with some new evil. And they would invent evil. And they would imagine evil, and there was nothing that was beyond their imagination to do. And what you find is you had such evil that was so rampant on the earth that God had to bring judgment. When I look at what's going on, and I get to the point now where I actually have to turn even Fox News off. I know say it isn't so. No, it is so. I have to, because I'm listening to everything that is happening and all the reporting on everything that is happening. I'm left with just one conclusion. This world is getting to the place now where the judgment of God has to come. Has to come. The evil is just unimaginable what's taking place. The fourth and final one, on May 18th, Israel calls Iran nuclear deal a trick. Now, seems to me to be a firm grasp of the obvious, but this again in the Bible is prophesied that there will be a Russian-Iranian-led nuclear attack against Israel. And there will be all of these nations led by both Russia and Iran, whom, by the way, have a mutual defense treaty. And the common denominator with all of these nations that are listed in Ezekiel 38 is that they are all Muslim. Well, someone might argue, is Russia Muslim? You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. The difference between an Ahmadinejad and a Hitler is this, and it's huge. Ahmadinejad believes he is called and commissioned to usher in the Muslim Messiah who will rule and reign on earth for a period of 7 years. And this Muslim Messiah will come only when Israel has been wiped off the map, which fulfills a host of other prophecies, not the least of which is Psalm 83, a prophetic psalm, where it's described, where the psalmist writes that they will say, come, let us, remove Israel so they are a nation no more. And yet we see this happening, and this is what makes an Ahmadinejad and an Iran so different than Hitler's Germany and master race. There is a demonic component, though Hitler was demon-possessed and Ahmadinejad is certainly demon-possessed. But the difference is that there is a spiritual dynamic and component here that comes into play, and it will play into the master plan of the one who will come in the place of Christ, called the Antichrist. Not just against Christ, but in the place of Christ. Okay. Can you just indulge me for just a moment? I need to be candid with you, okay? We don't do these weekly prophecy updates just for the sake of doing them. I realize that, Bible prophecy can be sensational, and we all love Bible prophecy. I don't know how many of you came up to me after last week, and, Strat from Gospel for Asia, it was just such an immense blessing. But some of you had, told me that you were having withdrawals from your prophecy update. You're addicts. Did you know that? You guys are addicted to Bible prophecy, you sickos. You're worse than me. But that's not why we do prophecy update. It's not why we look at Bible prophecy. We do this because there's something that we need to do about Bible prophecy. We need to build a bridge between the prophetic information and the personal application, or else we're just wasting our time. So you come, you hear a prophecy update, you get really excited because the Lord's coming soon and you want the Lord to come soon. But at the same time, to whom much has been given, much is required. What does God require us to do with that which we know to be true, especially as it relates to Bible prophecy? I want to share with you something that A.W. Tozer said. I have this love-hate relationship with his writing. And sometimes I just love it. He's so blunt, but then it's for that reason that I also don't like to read his writing much, because he just says it like it is. Boy, he wouldn't do well today, I don't think. Nobody would put up with him. But he says this. He says, quote, "It is wrong